It is Monday, which means another mock draft Monday. The draft order has changed and will change again. So next week's mock draft Monday will have a different draft order, of course, as the Giants and Packers play tonight, as do the Dolphins and Titans. So depending on who wins or loses tonight, things could definitely change a lot. If the Giants or Titans win, they would obviously drop down the board a little bit. And if they lose, they're probably going to hold their spot, or certainly will. Yet the pick for the Packers and Dolphins could change. But I'm going to do a very different theme in this mock draft. We've been giving the Bears a quarterback for a while now, and I do ultimately believe if the Bears have the number 1 overall pick that they will end up taking a quarterback. It's just too rare and valuable of a spot to be in to take your future franchise signal caller. Now, if you believe in Justin Fields, this is the mock draft for you, because we're going to keep him in this scenario and build around him. And that would mean trading out of the number 1 pick, not taking a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. here, or Olu Fashanu, or Joe Alt, right? You'd be trading out of this pick for somebody looking to move up for a quarterback. Maybe they want to jump the Patriots. Maybe the Patriots would even swap with the Bears here. And I know people never think that's an option. It certainly is. But we're going to go ahead and trade out of this spot. And the teams I could see moving up for a quarterback would be potentially the Giants, the Raiders, even maybe the Jets, although I find that a little less likely, with still trying to make the most out of, maybe one more Aaron Rodgers year. And then maybe the Falcons, maybe the Saints. But I think the Raiders are probably the most likely. So we're going to make a blockbuster trade here with the Bears at number 1, moving down with the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders in this scenario would trade at least 2 first-round picks, probably a third in 2026. That's just what it takes to move up for a QB. And a player could be involved as well. If I were the Bears, and the Raiders might be looking to get rid of a big-time player at receiver, well, Davante Adams could also be involved in this scenario as the Raiders completely look to rebuild. That's kind of a fun scenario. I don't know that it would be exactly this, obviously, but it's kind of a fun scenario. It'd be at least 2 and probably 3 first-round picks and more. Again, that's just what it takes. But in this scenario, we're going to send over Davante Adams because that's insane, and have the Raiders pick at number 1 overall, and we will go with Caleb Williams, maybe the top quarterback in the entire draft. I could also be sold on Drake May, who I'm going to give to the Patriots next. Both very good quarterbacks. People keep asking me to kind of explain the difference between them. Some don't see it with May because his college stats are not amazing, but you cannot value college stats. It just does not matter. And for Drake May, he is an elite quarterback prospect that would have gone number 1 overall last year, certainly, without question. So he ends up being a nice value pick at number 2, if you can believe it. But Drake May is better within the structure of the offense. So that's, classic 3-step drop, get the football out. Maybe you can hold the ball a little bit longer, go through your reads, your progressions, and find the right guy. May is accurate down the field. He's got an exceptional arm, and he can run as well. Williams is better as an improviser, somebody that when the play breaks down is at his best. Also a tremendous arm and accuracy. He's just a playmaker. The way I would describe it is what you saw from Bryce Young last year at Alabama, and people are going to be down on that because Bryce Young has not played well in a terrible offensive system in Carolina. Obviously, Frank Reich got fired now, but you have no receivers. The offensive line has not been able to protect at all, and the play calls, the concepts are so boring and predictable, and you're putting Bryce Young in an impossible situation. But when you looked at him at Alabama, he was just a guy, when you had to make a play, he made a play. And Caleb Williams, I view similarly. Great improviser, great out of the structure of the play. He's going to find a way to make a play. Whereas Drake May is definitely better at, boom, ball's got to come out, there it goes, it's in the right spot. Cardinals at 3, I think would obviously take Marvin Harrison Jr. in this scenario. Receiver is a big need for them. They have a couple of decent guys, maybe like Rondale Moore, his contract's going to be expiring. Maybe like Hollywood Brown. You could always use a big actual X outside receiver, and that's what Marvin Harrison Jr. is. Good route runner for his size, exceptional ball skills, and the best trait for MHJ, in my opinion, is his ability to adjust to the football. Amazing Amazing player with the football in the air. We have the Commanders at 4. I gave them Olu Fashanu last time, and I still think that just makes the most sense for the Commanders. He is a guy that's local to that area. I think he was a DMV kid in high school and then ended up going to Penn State. Bringing him back to that area to be your lockdown franchise left tackle, I think makes a ton of sense. And that leads the Giants to the number 5 pick. And I think receiver is absolutely in play. I think offensive line is certainly in play. And for everyone wanting me to take a quarterback, I do think QB is in play. Jaden Daniels won the Heisman, well-deserved, and I don't actually value that. I don't care if you win the Heisman or not. If Bo Nix won it or Michael Penix won it, to me, it doesn't do anything to their draft stock. It is just an award. When you're evaluating a player, you're evaluating them on the field. And for, the scouts in these programs, or organizations, I should say, they're evaluating the mental makeup and all these different things. But winning an award doesn't do anything to fluctuate that, I can promise you. Maybe in terms of national media, it can build up hype, but it doesn't actually do anything for the prospect. And that's why a guy like Lamar Jackson, who is an electric Heisman winner, ends up falling down to 32 because he wasn't an elite prospect. And I did like him. He was QB2 in that class for me. But Jaden Daniels is actually a very good prospect. And I think similar to Lamar Jackson, he's someone that came a long way as a passer, and that's what got Lamar into the first round. In the same way, I think it's going to get Jaden Daniels into the first round. I think quarterback's absolutely in play for the Giants. However, I don't think it is the biggest need. Daniel Jones under contract for the next 4 seasons. You have an out in the contract where you can take, I would say, less of a huge cap hit or cap penalty for getting rid of him, but that's after the 2024 season, and that's the earliest you can get rid of that contract. So it doesn't have to be a quarterback now. It doesn't have to be. And if you find yourself at 5 and you think Jaden Daniels is worth the number 5 overall pick, and he very well could be, that could be your selection. But I'm going to try and get whoever the quarterback happens to be, Tommy DeVito or Daniel Jones, get him some weapons. The Giants really don't have any at receiver, and they've done so well in the draft before, targeting LSU receivers. Ruben Randall was good for like a season or 2 and then became terrible. And then Odell Beckham Jr. obviously became one of the best receivers in the entire NFL, but health held him back. Malik Neighbors is an incredible player, and to me, you got to get another playmaker in this offense. In this scenario, we're obviously hoping that Evan Neal develops as a right tackle, so we're not taking a tackle. There's no interior offensive lineman worth taking with this pick, so it really comes down to quarterback or receiver in this scenario for me, and we go with the receiver, Malik Neighbors. Titans at 6. I feel like they're ecstatic with how the board has fell to them, and that's Joe Alt at number 6. You need help at tackle. Joe Alt is one of the best ones in the class. His 2022 season was good. His 2023 season has been fantastic, and that's why he gets pushed into the top 10 here. And now you have the Bears with back-to-back picks at 7 and 8, and I think they're pretty happy with the way the board sits as well, because tackle maybe not necessarily one of your biggest needs. You have decent tackles. It's really center that becomes a big need for the Bears. And again, there's not one worth taking anywhere close to this pick. So what do? Well, I think you probably just look to take the best player available. And that's probably Brock Bowers. However, you don't really need a tight end. Cole Kmet is good enough, right? So you kind of look to fill, the best player available with also a position of need. And that kind of comes down to the defensive line and receiver for me, in my opinion. And I think Rome Odunze is someone that is going to end up being a top, 10 or 15 pick, and I think well worth it. Height, weight, speed, freak, can get deep down the field, can win the 50-50 balls. He's a fantastic player, and as a Texas Longhorns fan, I am very scared of Rome Odunze in the Sugar Bowl as Texas looks to win a college football playoff game for the first time in their history. Bears with back-to-back picks. We've addressed receiver. As I keep saying, I truly believe Dallas Turner is going to be the first defensive player off the board. Freak athlete that's also good against the run and as a speed rusher. Dallas Turner is a really, really fun player, and I think he's going to be solid, but he also has the upside of being such an incredible athlete. So you address both sides of the ball here at 7 and 8. You get maybe the best defensive player in the class, and there are some great ones. I love Leatu Latu. I really do think injury is probably going to push him out of the top 10. He's somebody that had to medically retire from football, and I know some of you are saying, well, he's cleared. That doesn't matter. Teams are going to factor this stuff in. That's why we see players drop all the time. Trey Smith had big health concerns. I think he had blood clots in his legs. Ended up falling not only out of the first round, but into the 5th or 6th. Becomes one of the best guards in the league. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Everyone thought he was a lock to be a first-round pick. Had some type of weird heart thing. Ends up falling way down the board. I think well into the 2nd round, at least. And there are countless instances of these things happening. And Jalen Phillips, very similar situation. UCLA pass rusher, ends up medically retiring, transferring to Miami after he was cleared, and then put up big numbers, first-round pick. So I'm not saying Leatu Latu is not going to go in the first round. I'm just saying I don't know that he's a lock to be the first defensive player off the board, even though in my opinion, he is the best overall defensive player in this draft. Jets at 9. Receiver is a big need for them, as is tackle, and the top 3 receivers are off the board. The top 2 tackles are off the board, and I'm not sure that there's a huge downgrade. This is a lot of receivers already in the top 10 at 3. I think Keon Coleman's best football is ahead of him. He is another height, weight, speed freak, maybe less so in the speed department, but he moves really well for someone that's 6'4", 215. He returns punts for FSU and is someone that is very good at that. You know, he's great after the catch. He is a ball winner. We talk about 50-50 balls with Rome Odunze. Keon Coleman oftentimes is like 90-10. He just goes up and gets it better than anyone in this draft class. He's incredible at the jump ball. Love Keon Coleman. And again, with thinking he moves differently than a typical 6'4", 215-pounder, I think he's only going to continue to get better. I don't think separation is going to be as big of a problem for Keon Coleman as it tends to be for guys that size, just because he, again, moves differently. I think he's a great prospect. I think he could end up being a top 10 pick. And it's just, would you prefer that or one of the top tackles? J.C. Latham would probably be my selection here. Really, really good player. I think I am going to get Aaron Rodgers a fun weapon, and that's going to be Keon Coleman. Jump ball receiver. If he thinks he likes Allen Lazard, wait until he gets Keon Coleman catching passes for him. Chargers at 10, it's Brock Bowers. I think it just makes too much sense. Gerald Everett, good player. Don't know how long he's going to be with the Chargers. Brock Bowers, better and a better future. Brock Bowers is a really, really good player. And it truly would be a shame if he fell out of the top 10 because he is absolutely a top 10, if not a top 5, if not a top 2 player in this entire class. Brock Bowers is an incredible prospect and certainly the best tight end we've seen since Kyle Pitts. And I think definitely on that same level. And as an all-around player, you might even rank him higher depending on how you use tight ends in your offense. Brock Bowers can play in line, can block, and is great after the catch, is great with the football in the air. I love Brock Bowers. Big-time weapon for Justin Herbert. Falcons at 11. I think this is great for them. They have their pick of the edge rushers available. And whether you want Leatu Latu, Chop Robinson, Jared Verse, you have your guys. I am going to go Leatu Latu. Really, really good player. And the Falcons actually have taken an edge rusher from UCLA in the first round before, Tack McKinley, although you're hoping this goes a little bit better than that did. Latu is really, really good. He is the most advanced pass rusher in this class in terms of having a pass rush plan, having counter moves, and having a wide array of rush moves to get to the quarterback. Leatu Latu is maybe my favorite player in the entire class. I've been on the Leatu Latu train for a while now. Saints at 12. Tackle could be in play. I think quarterback's in play. And the fact that Jaden Daniels is available with this pick means that Jaden Daniels ends up being the selection. LSU guy stays in the boot. Gotta love it as he goes down from Baton Rouge to New Orleans and is the Saints' future franchise quarterback. It's not Derek Carr. I can tell you that, and I think we know it's not Jameis Winston, as much as I would prefer to see Jameis Winston start at quarterback over Derek Carr. Jaden Daniels is your guy for the future. Of course, drafting him in the first round gives you that fifth-year option as well. So you have QB locked down. That gives you more freedom to address the entirety of the rest of the roster and part ways with guys like Derek Carr eating into your cap. And the Saints are one of these teams that they've been really good at getting around the rules of the cap with deferred money and void years. And this time, they might actually have the freedom to kind of play within the lines a little bit more, so to speak. But Jaden Daniels, great player. We know he's a great runner. He has taken massive strides as a thrower of the football. And it's easy to, in a way, when your receiving threats are Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. That's another great player we'll talk about probably in a bit. Seahawks at 13. Now, I've gone with Troy Fautanu a couple of times here, and Seahawks fans typically don't like it. He's not probably going to be a tackle in the NFL, will probably move to guard, and that's a probability, but great overall offensive line prospect. I think he could potentially stick a tackle, but shorter arms typically push those outside guys like Graham Barton into a guard spot. That's just typically what happens. But if you're not taking interior offensive line for the Seahawks, what do you take? Everyone wants a quarterback, and Geno Smith has been up and down. I think when he's on his game, Geno's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I know that sounds absurd, but at his best, and we saw it like a week or two ago, Geno can be incredible, but is he a long-term option? Probably not. It's a 3-year contract, which means you have 2024 and 2025 left. You could certainly look to draft his replacement, but who is that going to be? I said this on Twitter. I guessed where I thought the quarterbacks would go. Some people, of course, disagreed with my assessment, and it's not even necessarily an assessment. It is a guess based on everything we know about these quarterbacks. I don't think Bo Nix or Michael Penix become first-round picks. I don't think so. I could certainly be wrong. I'm not saying it's 100% chance or even 90 that they go outside the first round, but due to age and especially injury history for Michael Penix, or maybe it's the system, maybe it's how advanced they are as players themselves, I just don't think they're going to end up being first-round picks. Penix is accurate when driving the football, but everyone talking about his pinpoint precision passing down the field, I think, is often mistaken because his touch throws are not particularly accurate. The ball placement needs a lot of work, but when he's actually just letting it fly and ripping it, I do agree that he is quite accurate, but it's not as, pinpoint as a lot of people tend to think. Great college quarterback, but had 4 seasons ended prematurely due to injury. Multiple ACL tears, multiple shoulder injuries. This will push you down the board. Now you can say, well, he was healthy for 2023. When you have injuries at age 18, 19, 20, 21, I don't think they're going to take stock and, he was healthy as a 22 or 3-year-old, right? So it's encouraging to see that, but typically injury-prone players, if you want to say that, don't get healthier over a career. Now, I wish him extreme health. I hope he never misses a game again. But these things will hold back a prospect. And I don't think he's going to end up being a first-round pick. Could be wrong. For his sake, would love to see him get in the first round. It's fun to see these QBs go high. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I'm not going to take a quarterback with this pick. I think the one that has the chance to go the highest out of this bunch is J.J. McCarthy. Carson Beck probably going to go back. Shadur Sanders, same deal. Quinn Ewers, same deal. McCarthy is a maybe. He could end up being a first-round pick based on upside, which is what we know how teams draft. We know 90% of these teams draft on upside, not the player necessarily that you saw in college. And McCarthy has made some big-time throws. He's someone that's capable of going through his progressions the way that a lot of these college quarterbacks cannot. So McCarthy, even though he's in a run-heavy offense, his best football, like in the case of a Keon Coleman, might be ahead of him. But all that to say, I don't know what you should really even do for the Seahawks at 13. You can go in a number of different ways. I wouldn't probably take a corner here, although I think you could. I probably wouldn't. Edge is in play. Boye Mafe is taking a big step up. I really like him as a player, but you could always have more edge rushers in there. Receiver obviously not in play, so it really does just come down to O-line, QB, or defensive line. Not going to take a linebacker at this spot. So I think we will end up going with an edge rusher. I know it's a really long-winded way to take Jared Verse here. But Verse is a really, really nice player. Started to come on real strong at the end of the year for FSU. Obviously had a big 2022. Really powerful hands, good athlete as well, good size. University of Albany transfer that's still kind of learning the edge position, but it did so in a hurry. He's quite a good prospect, and I think he could end up being a top 15 or 20 pick. We'll have to see what ends up happening, but I like Verse quite a bit. And yes, I know the Seahawks have invested somewhat at edge recently. It's just, this is a chance to take a really, really good one. And I don't think you pass that up to have, a bigger, more powerful player on the other side of Boye Mafe, who is, somewhat big, but is more of a twitchy, explosive guy. Whereas Verse can still do those things, maybe not on the same level, but also can set the edge and power rush to the quarterback. Should be a fun combo. Rams at 14. I think I would probably take a corner here, given that they're all still available. The Rams do not have a great roster, in my opinion. They could go in a number of different areas. Their defense is especially not great. I think Chop Robinson would, of course, be in play. I'm going to go Nate Wiggins. I've said I think he's going to be the first corner off the board as well. We'll have to see if that ends up being true. I feel less good about it. I really do think Dallas Turner is going to be the first defender off the board, but Nate Wiggins would be my guess for first corner. He's got the size, he's got the arm length, he's got the speed, he's got the movement skills. I really do like Nate Wiggins as a prospect. Big time hustle. He checks off a lot of boxes, and he's someone that you'd expect to have his best football ahead of him as well. And what I mean by that is these are players that might be a little bit more raw in some instances, but have the size and athletic ability as well as the talent to be top-end players. And again, we see those types of guys go really, really high in the draft usually. Nate Wiggins to the Rams, cornerback out of Clemson. Cardinals at 15. Took Marvin Harrison Jr. earlier. What do? Well, this is another case of a roster that's just not all that good right now. I think corner I would love to take here. I think edge could be in play as well. I do probably like corner with all of the top corners really being available with the exception of Nate Wiggins. And let's continue to push Terrion Arnold up the board from Alabama. He is definitely smaller than Kool-Aid McKinstry, but they're different types of players. If I'm going to be in a heavy press man scheme, I probably prefer Kool-Aid McKinstry if I were a team like the Giants or the Steelers. If I'm a team that, prefers guys with a little bit better movement skills probably, I'd maybe prefer Terrion Arnold to be my field corner. Just let him run. And Terrion Arnold, I think, is trending towards being a top 2 or 3 corner in this class anyway. We push him up the board to CB2 to the Cardinals at 15. Broncos at 16. This is another tough spot. They've been rumored to trade Jerry Jeudy or Courtland Sutton for a number of years now. I don't think Courtland Sutton ends up getting moved. I think at some point Judy's not going to be back. You could bring another receiver into the fold for sure. I just don't think it's necessarily going to be with this pick. What I would do if I were the Broncos is invest in an edge rusher. Randy Gregory was a big signing that is now playing for another team in the 49ers, so edge remains a need. I like Nick Bonito. I like Baron Browning. Get another really explosive edge rusher in the mix and Chop Robinson, and you're starting to create a big problem for opposing offenses when you can keep guys fresh and rotate guys in and out and use some of those guys in scenarios where they're going to be best. Like, is Nick Bonito necessarily a 3-down player? I'm not sure about that. So you get a guy like Chop Robinson in the mix as well. I think it's a fun combo. Now, could they opt to take a more traditional defensive end like a JT Tuimoloau or Braylon Trice with a little bit more size? Definitely a possibility as well. I just think Chop Robinson ends up going high up the board just because he's such an explosive athlete. Those guys typically go pretty high. At number 17, we got the Buffalo Bills. And the Buffalo Bills, I have consistently given Cooper DeJean in about every mock draft I've done, and I still feel like the fit is fantastic. We're going to mix it up today, and we are going to go with a receiver. Emeka Egbuka will be my selection, and Egbuka, if healthy, I think is certainly a lock to go in the first round. I'm not sure that he is anymore, just because 2023 was a little bit injury-riddled, but really good player, a lot of deep speed. I think he's probably going to be a slot player at the next level. So you go, oh, well, what does that mean for Dalton Kincaid? Well, I think you could move him into more of an inline role, go 12 personnel with he and Dawson Knox, depending on how long Knox sticks around. And you could also just rotate guys around, get the mismatches that you want, and take advantage of your talent on offense compared to the defense not being able to match up. And when you can use like chess pieces like Emeka Ibuka, move him around, Dalton Kincaid, your offense starts to become a lot more dynamic and lets a guy like Stefon Diggs get a lot more one-on-ones, less bracket coverage, and more of an opportunity to feast if Stefon Diggs ends up staying in Buffalo long term, which it seems like there are rumors that he wants out every other week. But for now, he's in Buffalo and still a very good player. Emeka Ibuka, I think, is a big-time upgrade at receiver. I'm not going to make this a Gabe Davis hate column, but I don't think Gabe Davis is quite the player that some fantasy football fans think he is, because he has a big game every once in a while. I'm not a huge Gabe Davis guy. I prefer somebody that can create a little bit more separation more routinely, and that happens to be Emeka Ibuka. At number 18, Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, Johnny Newton falls here to the Bengals a lot, and I do really love the fit, but in this particular mock draft, the tackles have fallen down the board, and I do think a lot of tackles are going to go in this first round, and the Bengals are a team that's primed to take one. J.C. Latham, Amarius Mims, two very good right tackles, and a third, I guess, if you want to count Taliisa Fuaga. Graham Barton, again, likely going to play guard. Fautanu can potentially move inside as well, but these are two college left tackles. Jordan Morgan, Patrick Paul, Tyler Guyton, all could be first-round picks. Kingsley Suamataia, I think, is in that conversation as well. But the Bengals need an upgrade, really, in my opinion, at both tackle spots. It's just tackles are so tough to find. That's why when a guy like Orlando Brown Jr. becomes available, you jump at the opportunity, even though he's not really one of the top tackles in the league. But I do think you need an upgrade, and if you're going to leave him at left tackle, you need an upgrade at right tackle, and take your pick. Out of these three, I think the best is J.C. Latham, so that will be my selection there to the Bengals, who have drafted an Alabama tackle before. Why did his name just escape me as soon as I was going to say it? I have his face in my mind. Right tackle for the Bengals, played there. Andre Smith. I don't know why I blanked on that for a minute. Bucks at 19. So just some fun parallels here with teams taking players from schools at positions they've done before. But I digress. Bucks at 19. Certainly not going to take Johnny Newton, although that'd be a fun interior with he and some are saying his clone out of Pitt a year ago, even though I don't necessarily see that comparison. Both undersized interior defensive linemen, but I think that's kind of as far as that goes. Bucks, though, at 19, have one of the worst secondaries in the league, or worst passing defenses in the league. How do you fix that? Pass rush up front, secondary help in the back. Now, if you look at the pass rushers, we have Braylon Trice, JT Tuimoloau, Chris Braswell, maybe. Princely Uman Mielen is entering the transfer portal. I'm not sure he ends up even declaring for the draft, although it's a possibility, I guess. So it's really these top two guys that would be in play if you're going to take an edge rusher. I do think their secondary needs a big upgrade as well. It really is take your pick here. And I guess why not add a versatile defensive back that can do a lot of different things for you, and that's going to be Cooper DeJean. Coming back from an injury, but is a great player. Also has returned kicks and punts for Iowa. Really, really good player at the back end. Best tackling DB in this draft, probably. And is a fun player that can help out a secondary that needs a lot of work. Now, you do have some talent there at corner. Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, of course, Antoine Winfield Jr. But DeJean as a slot option / safety / maybe sometimes boundary corner can be a great fit. Really, really like him as a player. Could end up being the best DB in the entire draft. Packers at 20. I like corner here. I think corner is going to be the pick based on what's available, or tackle. But I don't hate their tackles. If we're drafting here, we're looking for left tackle. Zach Tom's done a great job on the right side. You need a left tackle. Bakhtiari can't be counted on. I don't love Rasheed Walker, but I just don't love the left tackles available here. So corner to me ends up being the easy pick, and that ends up being the falling Kool-Aid McKinstry. That can still end up being a nice player for the Packers. Now, it's not the same as Clinton Dix, but it's another fun name out of Alabama, DB. He was a pretty good player for the Packers at safety for a couple of years in there. Colts at 21. I have been giving them JT Tuimoloau out here. I still like it. I think it's probably corner, or JT Tuimoloau. Now, I'm actually going to get crazy. I'm going to go Quinion Mitchell from Toledo. We know if there's one thing about Chris Ballard, the GM of the Colts, he loves the freak athletes. Enter Quinion Mitchell, 6 foot, 200, apparently runs in the 4.3s. He's got arm length for days. That seems like a Chris Ballard darling to come in and play corner. Now, I know you're going to be scared because it's Toledo. It's a small school. He's been locked down there in the MAC, but has the skills to be a starting NFL corner and especially the size as well. So I wouldn't discount the college so much, although I will say when evaluating cornerback, obviously some of it comes down to, okay, how many yards do you allow? You know, are you staying in phase often? But it's a lot of movement skills. It's a lot of watching them, seeing how they move, seeing how they match up. And it's going to be easier against, you know, lesser competition. But it's a lot of how do they move? And for me, whether you play at Toledo or Alabama, it doesn't necessarily matter as much compared to, you know, evaluating a position, say, like edge rusher. If you're dominating in the MAC, it's a lot different than dominating in the SEC for an edge. Just saying. Vikings at 22. I do love a quarterback here, but which quarterback do you take? Obviously, numbers-wise, Nix and Penix would be at the top. Went Carson Beck last time. I still feel pretty good about that if he doesn't go back to school, which he certainly could. I'm going to go J.J. McCarthy this time around. I truly believe if he declares this year, he will be drafted ahead of Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. I know that's going to be, and that's not saying I like him more as a player. I'm just saying I truly believe that's what's going to happen. And it's just, first of all, younger, just every bit as athletic as a Bo Nix, with just as big of an arm, if not even bigger, and also has the ability to process a little bit better than a Bo Nix type guy, and throw the ball down the field, I think, a little bit better, even though Nix has had more of an opportunity to do so in the pack compared to the Big Ten with those great defenses and especially power run offenses. McCarthy, I think, is down, you know, according to a lot of people right now, just because we've seen so much power run. But McCarthy can throw. They just haven't needed to because they run the ball so successfully every play. It's kind of one of those things, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they haven't tried to. They just run and run and run and run. And with Blake Corum in that offensive line, it works. McCarthy's best football, I think, is going to be ahead of him. I think he ends up being a decent pick here at 22. Steelers at 23. Tackle just happens to be a big need, and you have some good ones available. I went Amarius Mims last time, and I still do love the Georgia connection. We'll go Fuaga this time around. Mahler at right tackle. Really, really fun to watch. And listen, as much as I love the draft and college football and evaluating prospects, I recognize offensive line is not the most exciting position to watch a lot of the time. But when you find these guys that are maulers in the run game, that take no prisoners, they, you know, went to school at IHOP, International Pancake Factory, essentially. Those guys are really fun to watch. Just maul people in the run game, and Fuaga is certainly that. So for a team who's long had their identity be power run, Fuaga really, really helps you get back to that. Texans at 24 via the Browns. This is their first pick of the draft, of course, because one was traded to Arizona, where the Cardinals took Terrion Arnold. For the Texans here, I've given them receiver before. I love the fit of Brian Thomas Jr. I do think he ends up being a first-round pick. I'm going to mix it up today because we've done that. I know their defense needs to get better, and Jerzon Newton, maybe because he's a bit undersized, has become available at 24. He's a great fit on the interior of their defensive line. You let your edge rushers go to work, Jonathan Grenard, Will Anderson Jr. You need something up the middle, and Newton is that pass rush up the middle that can really give you like a NASCAR type feel. I know that's typically edge rushers, but Newton has that speed on the interior with Anderson on the outside, Grenard on the outside. It's going to be tough for teams to match that speed and quickness on the defensive line. Chiefs at 25, though. Well, don't mind if I do. Brian Thomas Jr. is available. He's another height, speed, deep threat. Similarly to a Rome Odunze, not quite on the same level as a prospect, but ends up being available at 25. he is a big-time weapon for Mahomes. We know the Chiefs only use Marquez Valdes-Scantling because they have to. Thomas gives you that deep threat ability, but he actually catches the football. Unbelievable, I know. Amazing fit to this offense. This is probably the most dangerous fit in the entire draft when you think about what is likely. I don't think a Rome Odunze gets to the Chiefs, but if Brian Thomas Jr. does, that feels like a perfect fit for the offense. Jags at 26. I think it's been Graham Barton here a lot for me. I think it has been. Edge could be in play. You're losing potentially Josh Allen. Got to replace him. Enter. Go JT Tuimoloau. You know, there was a thought that they could take an edge rusher high in the draft in Aiden Hutchinson. Ended up going with Trayvon Walker. Tuimoloau is more of a true edge, where Walker is just an extremely versatile, fun player who is getting better this season quietly, by the way. We knew he was going to be a project. Tuimoloau is a little bit more solid. So we'll see if Trent Baalke likes to go a different direction with more of a project. But he gives you something solid and dependable on the edge, and lets Trayvon Walker hopefully continue to develop. Should be really, really fun. At 27, we got the Lions. What would I do if I was the Lions here? If I were the Lions, they're a good team. They really killed the draft, obviously. Jack Campbell, at linebacker, a little bit undervalued position nowadays. Ends up being a really nice pick at 18. Jahmyr Gibbs, running back, surprise of the draft, goes at 12. This ended up being a really nice player for the Lions. Brian Branch should have never been able to get to number 45 or wherever the Lions took him in the draft. Been a great player so far. Now, they do need help on the boundary. However, I'm not in love with the boundary corners available. I'd lean Kamari Lassiter. I'd lean that direction. But this is a really solid offensive line class. This could be a really good opportunity to take somebody like Graham Barton, play him inside at guard, and really help the interior of your offensive line. Now, I don't actually think it's too bad, and I don't know why center's in need with Frank Ragnow. Maybe I'm missing something there. But Graham Barton feels like a nice upgrade at guard. Now, he's played left tackle in college. I think you have a good left guard in Jonah Jackson. But he could be somebody that moves to right guard or even potentially replace Taylor Decker long-term at left tackle. It's an option. At least it's something to think about. And the versatility that Graham Barton can give you is, really valuable. At 28, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Their secondary needs a boost. I really, really believe that it does. And you can keep Kalen King in the state of Pennsylvania, going from, where's Penn State play? It's called like University College or University Town, College Town. It's something dumb. I don't like Penn State. I don't know why. I don't know why I have to rib him here. Dolphins at 29. Really good players still available. For me, this would be a tackle if one gets available. And Amarius Mims is sitting there. Troy Fautanu is sitting there. I don't really think you can go wrong. Amarius Mims probably has the highest upside. Ends up being the pick here at 29. And I think the Cowboys could really go back and take a tackle as well. And I think in a similar way that Tyler Smith gave you a versatile player that has been one of the best left guards in the league that you might think is going to go to play tackle to replace Tyron Smith, you could just take Troy Fautanu, and then he might be able to start at left tackle initially, or you could kick Tyler Smith out to left tackle and then insert Fautanu at guard. Either way, I think it's a really good fit for the Cowboys offensive line, which could use some help. And also, right tackle becomes a need as well. It's not just Tyron Smith. Right tackle's a need. Maybe you could put Fautanu out there or Tyler Smith, something. I don't know. Smith is so good at left guard, I would want to leave him there if I were the Cowboys. But if you think he can be a serviceable left tackle as well, that's the more valuable offensive line position. You'd probably do that. I don't know. It's kind of a tough call, but you get some versatility here in the same way that Barton offers the Lions versatility. 49ers at 31. I've really just consistently gone tackle here, and I don't really feel a need to go any other way. I think Patrick Paul was first team All Big 12 and is a really nice option. I think mostly I've given them Tyler Guyton, but left tackle is going to be a need. Trent Williams not going to be around forever. Right tackle is a need right now. interior offensive line's a need. Everything is a need on that offensive line, even with Trent Williams being one of the best in the entire league. And then at 32, to round things out, we have the Baltimore Ravens. I wouldn't take a receiver here at all. I would consider interior defensive line if you lose Justin Madubuike in free agency. I'd certainly consider edge, and I would certainly consider corner. Those would be the big positions of need for me. You could also consider tackle maybe as well, but these would be the 3 positions I would really look at. I would go defense if I were the Ravens. And looking at the best players here, I think I gave them Kamari Lassiter last time out, so I will end up changing this. And you know what? This is a great opportunity to get my guy T'Vondre Sweat in the first round. Hook 'em horns, T. Sweat, Outland Award winner for best lineman in the nation. First team All-American, unbelievable interior defensive lineman. He's 6'4", 362 or 3 pounds of monster on the interior. And even if you keep Justin Madubuike, this is your nose tackle with some pass rush upside. He's surprisingly quick for 360 plus pounds. He is a monster on the interior and would make life even easier for Justin Madubuike. And I know the interior of their defensive line is not bad. You have guys behind. You know, of course, they got a nice player out of UConn a couple years back. But T'Vondre Sweat would be a big option. Emphasis on big, 360 plus pounds. And especially if you lose Justin Madubuike, you're going to need something on that interior. And T'Vondre Sweat is certainly something. So not the Texas player I thought I'd be getting into the first round. I consistently think that Adonai Mitchell ends up being a first round pick. Just didn't make it happen again this week. But T'Vondre Sweat, I finally got in. I don't know that he ends up being a first round pick, but it's a good opportunity to talk about it. Hook 'em, Texas hopefully wins the Sugar Bowl, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.